Hi, hello. My name is Pierre-Loup Griffet, and I'm an engineer working on the Steam Deck. I've been working on Steam, SteamOS, and Linux hardware.
My name is Yazan Aldihayat. I'm a hardware engineer. I work on the Steam Deck motherboard, display, battery, all kind of hardware stuff.
My name is Jay Shaw, a little easier to pronounce. I'm a designer working on Steam Deck. I worked a lot on the UI and software and the store.
Yeah, there's a lot of continuity between some of these previous projects and Steam Deck. For example, a lot of the hardware development on the Steam controller, as well as the software development on Steam inputs in the years that followed the controller release, was directly applicable to the Steam Deck and was necessary for completing Steam Deck. In addition, our experience working on the Valve Index virtual reality headset gave us a lot of learnings on production and display and audio that is also directly applicable to the Steam Deck. Similarly, the Steam Link got us to develop Steam Remote Play technology that is directly used in the Steam Deck as well. In short, all of our hardware projects over the last 10 years were necessary to get to where we are now with Steam Deck. Steam Deck's the first time that we've designed a full custom computer. When we did Steam Machines, we were integrating existing mainboard components. So this is our first time doing a custom design in partnership with AMD in this case. This is also our first foray with high-end battery technology. Before we had much smaller batteries, but the Valve Index controller was actually a pretty important stepping stone to get us to this point.
One of the bigger challenges with the Steam Deck was actually thermal design and making a portable device that has a lot of performance but still comfortable to hold and doesn't, it's not too loud basically. And it took us a lot of work and iterations to get to the place where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, Steam Deck also supports Linux native games, so we only use Proton when there is no Linux version of the game. But in terms of working with developers in the past for Steam Machines to develop Linux ports, we learned that it's often not worth the effort for a developer to do a Linux version, and that is why we've been developing Proton for the last 5 years or so. One disadvantage can be that sometimes a new feature is not yet supported by Proton, so we need to add support before a game is playable. But ever since Steam Deck has been something that is public, there's a lot of developer interest, so we have been able to work with developers ahead of game releases as opposed to after game releases to make sure that the games are ready to go by the time that they are released on Steam, which is a big progress compared to before, where games were not always playable at launch.
And just to clear up one point, I think I heard you say emulation, if I'm not wrong. Proton isn't, it's not an emulation in the strict sense of the word. It's actually it's a translation layer. So it's translating APIs that would normally be sent to Windows, and it's translating them and allowing this system to use them. But it's not an emulation, so there isn't really a hit on performance like you would see normally with an emulator.
Anytime the game makes an API call that would go to Windows, instead it goes to Proton. But the game's own CPU code runs unmodified on our x86 CPU, so there's no CPU emulation.
Just having Linux be open source was huge for us because it means that if we want to make a small change, even a very, very small change or fix a bug, we can do it a lot quicker than having to report the bug to some other company who owns the OS, having them, spend days or weeks fixing it and then report to us. Like that iteration loop being a lot quicker allowed us to be able to ship Steam Deck the way that it is and speed that up a lot. It keep improving. So Japan was on the list of countries that we were planning to ship Steam Deck to from the first day. And we designed Steam Deck from the very beginning to be compatible with all the regulatory requirements in Japan. The delay was purely because we don't have an existing distribution channel to sell products in Japan. So it took us time to work with Komodo and establish that so we can actually sell it in Japan.
We hope it is a huge success, but I think there's a lot of potential for a platform like Steam Deck in Japan. Personally, it's anecdotal, but over the last 5 years, I've seen a lot of interest towards PC gaming in Japan and a growing interest. But I think people were observing, and they're not always jumping into it, and because there's a lot of there's form factor problems, there's choice problems, they're not sure what to get, and I believe Steam Deck could be a very good entry point for a large audience in Japan to experience PC gaming for the first time.
So, I think we've already stated publicly before that we think Steam Deck is going to be a multi-generational product, so we definitely expect there to be future iterations of it. And I guess the other thing is, I think that we're trying to find the right balance in terms of lifespan, because we want to make sure that game developers have a stable platform for them to target. But at the same time, we want to follow the PC model of constant improvements and constant iterations. So I don't know that we know exactly what the time span is going to be, but I think we're going to try to find the right balance there and definitely make improvements quickly in things that are not performance, for example.
In general, even if we do release revisions that have different performance characteristics, we think this instance of the Steam Deck was designed to be able to play all games of Steam for years to come. So we think the performance level that we've selected should be a solid target to be fairly future-proof for this generation.
The world of PCs is very vast, so right now on Steam Deck, you can play games that are released today. You could play games that are released a year ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. So the PC library, the Steam library, it's ever evolving, but it will always be backwards compatible. So that's one of the big advantages.
Yeah, we definitely, for both of these things, those are definitely things that we took in consideration from the earliest stage of development. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't too heavy, so it could be used for extended periods of time, and that the control area was very comfortable with ergonomics comparable to a full-size controller, as opposed to a more compact mobile controller, so that people could play for hours at a time without getting hand cramps. We believe that the way that you grip the device and you hold your hands on it actually plays a big role in how you perceive its weight, because if it's comfortable to support while not having to maintain a firm grip, then the weight of the device is better spread in your hands.
So regarding the sleep, I think we spent a lot of time prototyping. And many years ago, the first prototype we've ever built, one of the first things, the feedback we got was that people really liked being able to put the device to sleep and very quickly wake it up and then immediately start playing games. So when we learned that, we knew that it was very important for us to make that experience be as good as possible. So low power consumption in sleep, fast resume, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
we're definitely looking at methods to improve those. in terms of the bumpers, I think it's something that we've revised already a lot in the current iterations of the device before release, right? We were looking at the bumper because it's literally at a corner, right, of the device, and so there's careful considerations to be had with respect to form factor and being able to actuate it. But we've seen that feedback before on the bumper, and it's something we're looking at. It's not clear, what we can do in what time frame, but it's something we're looking at. As for the grip buttons, there's a careful balance to be stricken there between them being easy to press and accidental actuations, because not everyone is always using the grip buttons for something, so we don't want people that are just grabbing the device to accidentally press the grip buttons. For that reason, we architect them so that the side that's along the grip is harder to press than the side that is closer to the case. So if you press here, it is really stiff, but if you press here, it's really easy. This is a little bit more out of the way. So there's a variety of functionality in the Steam Deck available if you hold the Steam button. And if you hold the Steam button or the quick access button, either of these two function buttons there, and then hit the left bumper, right bumper, sorry, R1, then it will take a screenshot. And then it's available in the media menu on the left navigation.
So I have a performance one that we've talked about a little bit, and I think the community has found too. There is a setting for changing your. You can change your refresh rate, and you can set your frames per second. We find that 40 hertz and 40 frames per second is kind of the perfect balance for performance and power consumption, even in the most demanding games. So in Elden Ring, 40 hertz at 40 frames per second is really, really nice.
One thing that I really enjoy doing with the Steam Deck is to enable the grip buttons, the 4 buttons on the back, to be to alias the A, B, X, Y face buttons. So I don't have to actually move my hand between the analog stick and the face buttons. So I can be controlling the camera at all times, and I just use the back buttons to play the game.
Gyro aiming, I think a lot of people forget about it. I don't know if you can demonstrate it here, but you could control the camera by just moving the device around. And you can activate that by just putting your finger onto the joystick.